How on earth could you possibly have that information, Light? Huh? You fucking lemon. That information was at no point ever told to you, not by Ryuzaki or your father. So how could you have known that? Huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. Case closed, bitch. Welcome back, everyone.
Episode 10, Doubt.
So the episode starts off at Toho University, where Light and his new best friend, Hideki Ryuga, aka L, are about to play a nice, friendly, super low-stakes game of tennis. Light explains that he's surprised that Ryuga chose tennis as a means of them getting to know each other better, claiming that he's actually pretty good at the sport. Ryuga responds by saying that at one time he was the British junior champion, which is interesting because it actually mirrors Light's own accolades in this particular sport. Anyway, we get this line from Light.
If I ask him if he's British, would he think I'm trying to find out more about him because I'm Kira?
And I want to take a second to talk about that because, in my opinion, you should be asking him questions about who he is. This guy just recently confessed to you that he's L, so wouldn't it make sense that you would have some questions about that? Have you really not asked him anything about that at all? Because the extent of your conversation with him in the last episode was basically him telling you that he's L, followed by him saying,
"The reason I chose to reveal my identity to you is because I think you could be of some help to us on the Kira investigation."
But that was it. It never went beyond that. Ryuga offered absolutely no evidence that he was L, so Light, at the bare minimum, should be asking how he can confirm he is who he claims to be. But instead, Light's hesitant about asking him basic questions that someone would legitimately ask if they were trying to get to know someone. Anyway, after asking him whether he's from the UK, Ryuga responds by saying,
"I lived in England for about 5 years when I was younger, but save your breath. Nothing in that story would reveal L's true identity, I promise you."
Okay.
While I want to say that this seems oddly antagonistic, I feel like it actually aligns with who we know Ryuga to be. He's not great when it comes to social situations, though I will say if the goal is to befriend Light, that's probably not the best way to go about it. Anyway, they start their match and Ryuga makes it clear from the jump that he's not fucking around. Meanwhile, back at HQ, we see that the chief is talking to his boss, who's currently asking for an update on the Kira investigation. The chief explains that L doesn't want any of them sharing details about the case, which is something that we saw L say back in episode 6. After the chief makes it clear that he won't be sharing any information, the boss says,
"People are saying that the NPA is incompetent, that L is incompetent."
And before we get into the chief's response, I just want to comment on how wild that statement is. The idea that people would call them incompetent, given what they're up against, is fucking insane. These guys are literally fighting an enemy unlike anything the world has ever seen before. A serial killer whose reach is honestly only limited by his target's anonymity. Kira can kill anyone whose name and face he has access to, regardless of where they are in the world. Which actually brings me to another point. Why is all of this falling on the NPA? I mean, I can kind of understand it. L made it clear that Kira was residing in the Kanto region of Japan back in episode 2. But, as I mentioned in my last video, the Kanto region has millions of people living in it. Not only that, but just because Kira was in Japan, it doesn't mean that he still is. I mean, obviously we can say for certain that he is, but still, there's no way that the NPA can know that for sure. My point being, I would argue that this isn't just an NPA problem, it's an ICPO problem, a global problem. So it's shitty that this all just falls on them. Anyway, that comment really pisses the chief off, with him responding by saying,
"If you're concerned with public opinion, then you'll want to suppress the fact that most of our detectives would rather let a serial killer roam free than risk their lives."
And I don't know, I get where he's coming from, but at the same time, I also understand why those officers did what they did. While police officers are well aware of the risks associated with their job, i.e. the chance that they could end up dying, that doesn't mean that they signed up for something like this. This isn't someone holding teachers and students hostage. This isn't someone trying to sexually assault a woman. This isn't someone who killed their domestic partner. This is someone, or for all they know, something that can kill anyone just by knowing their name and face. And as he proved on the broadcast and with those FBI agents, he's willing to kill anyone who gets in his way. Kira is the fucking boogeyman come to life. I also want to add that it was actually pretty cool to see the varying opinions on this particular topic in the comment section for my video on episode 2, with Asia and Yasmin saying they could understand where those officers were coming from, whereas Jamie's thoughts more so aligned with the chief's. Neither opinion is wrong, by the way, just interesting to see where some of y'all stand on the topic. Also, thanks for leaving a comment. Anyway, back at school, things are getting intense as Light and Ryuga's tennis match has drawn quite a crowd. As the match intensifies, we get extended inner monologues from both of them as they analyze each other's actions. For Ryuga, this means scrutinizing Light's playstyle, pondering as to whether or not he'll go for the W. And for Light, it means evaluating whether or not he should go for the W, as well as what the overall purpose of this match even is. But honestly, as they both say during this match,
"This is just a friendly game of tennis, nothing more. In and of itself, it won't determine if Light is Kira.
I don't see any way that he can profile me based on a tennis match.
And they're both right. There's really nothing that can be determined based on this interaction. This is even further supported by the fact that during this scene, they're not depicted in their usual colors of red and blue, despite the fact that they're engaging in an inner monologue or borderline dialogue. There just aren't any actual stakes here. Anyway, as the match inches towards its conclusion, both he and Ryuga turn their gaze to their immediate future, i.e. what happens after the match.
So it goes without saying that the first thing you're going to want from me is some kind of confirmation from a third party that you really are L, which means we'll have to go to task force headquarters.
And yeah, eventually Ryuga is going to have to prove who he is. Ryuga approached him saying that he wants his assistance, so if I was Light, I'd be like, how do I know you're actually L? Again, why that wasn't the first thing he asked before agreeing to a fucking random tennis match, I don't know, but it's gotta happen. Anyway, one more thing before we wrap this match up. I want to point out a single line of dialogue because it's gonna be pretty important in a few minutes.
You're going to try and trap me by getting me to say something that only Kira would know.
And yeah, I really, really want y'all to hold on to that one because, well, we'll get to it. Anyway, the match ends with Light taking the W, and as was said by all three of us at this point, it ultimately changes nothing as far as the investigation goes. We fast forward a little bit and we see the two of them walking together on campus. Light asks if the two of them can go somewhere so that he can ask Ryuga some questions. However, Ryuga responds by saying,
Before this conversation goes any further, there's something I must tell you. I suspect that you, Light Yagami, are in fact Kira.
And this is weird because I don't know how a person should act in this situation. And I imagine even Light probably wasn't expecting him to just come right out and say it like that. I mean, Ryuga follows it up by saying there's only a 1% chance, which is clearly a fucking lie, but still, how would you react in this situation? If a detective, hell, the detective, approached you and said that they thought you were Kira? Would you be offended or combative? Would you be worried or scared? Or would you be like,
You think I'm Kira?
And I don't know if you were expecting him to say more, but yeah, that's it for his initial reaction. Just kind of scoffing at the idea, really, which I mean is definitely one way to go about it. I don't know. If the goal is for him to perceive you as being innocent, I just don't know if scoffing at what he said is the best way to go about it. But then maybe that's just legitimately how he would have responded to that regardless. That's kind of why I'm asking you all your opinion on it, to see if that is how other people might respond to being suddenly told that they were a suspect in the Kira investigation. Because I feel like at the bare minimum, I'd want to probe further, maybe ask, why would you think that? And furthermore, if I was Light and someone told me that I was a suspect in the Kira investigation, you best believe I'm not saying shit to you until I speak to my father. But I don't know, man. Light's just acting like he doesn't give a fuck. He's like that one fucking meme.
Oh no. Anyway.
And now that I think about it, that's another thing that I didn't even consider. This strange man came to you and said he was L and you didn't tell your father? Like, wouldn't that have been the appropriate thing to do? Let him know that you were approached by someone claiming to be L who's offering you the opportunity to work on the Kira investigation, a case you know your father is working on? Because if he is L and you don't tell your father, it's going to look kind of suspicious, like why were you keeping that a secret? And if he's not L and you tell your father, well, then at least you'd have confirmation one way or the other. Furthermore, as a child, wouldn't you need his fucking permission to start moonlighting as a detective on behalf of the MPA? And hell, I looked up the legal age in Japan and it's fucking 20. You're fucking 3 years away from being considered an adult. You not mentioning anything to your dad is just weird. I might have been able to explain it away if all of this happened on the same day, but at least 24 hours have passed since you met him, if not longer, and you didn't say anything about it. But whatever. We switch scenes to a coffee shop where the two continue their conversation. After sitting down, Ryuga gives Light the opportunity to ask him anything he wants. And for some reason, this motherfucker says,
I'm sure that can wait until you're convinced that I'm not Kira. So please, let's talk about whatever you want to.
What the fuck? You're really not even gonna ask why he thinks that you might be Kira. I mean, just why wouldn't you? What's the game plan here? Okay. I can imagine one of two scenarios that would explain this behavior. One, he's back to being the cocky piece of shit that he usually is and is so unbothered by it all that he's not even going to attempt feigning concern over the accusation. But that honestly just seems like such a dumb idea. Being cocky when this dude literally has you in his crosshairs just doesn't seem like the intelligent play at all. And so I'm thinking maybe it's the second scenario, wherein he's acting like he's not bothered because he wants to come off as skeptical about who Ryuga is, given the fact that he's yet to provide any evidence. Essentially, because of how odd Ryuga is, and because he hasn't provided any evidence to support his claim about being L, Light can just shrug him off as being some random weirdo. It's kind of like if you had a classmate that came up to you in a tinfoil hat claiming that aliens were among us and you're their leader. You wouldn't take them seriously, and depending on what kind of person you are, i.e. if you're kind of an asshole, you might just pretend to go along with it just to see how far they take it. Which honestly, in this situation, could actually come in handy if Ryuga ever does provide some evidence. Because if Ryuga proves that he's L, Light can switch gears and be like, oh wait, what the fuck? This is real? You're really L and you really think I'm Kira? Which would then allow him to overcompensate and say something outlandish like,
What if you were to lock me up for a month and keep a constant watch over me?
which in turn might make him seem more innocent. Maybe. So it's either an instance of Light being a little cocky piece of shit, or another instance of him showing off his 4D chess skills, or hell, maybe it's a little of both. But anyway, Ryuga tells Light that he would like to test his deductive reasoning skills, to which Light agrees. And this is where things get interesting. Ryuga then presents him with the 3 suicide notes that Kira had manipulated the prison inmates into writing back in episodes 4 and 5. But I want to take note of the fact that Ryuga says,
Photographs of 3 notes written by prison inmates while under Kira's control just prior to their deaths. None of this information has been made public.
Anyway, Light first comments on what Ryuga said about Kira controlling criminals' actions, claiming that it would be amazing to learn that Kira could do that. And that was really good on him for remembering to acknowledge that idea as if it was his first time hearing it, because it really should be his first time hearing about it. Anyway, we then get this internal monologue from him as he claims that this is child's play due to the fact that each image has a number printed on the back, which, when put in numerical order, reveal a message that's slightly different from the one he intended.
L, do you know? Love apples, gods of death.
However, being the smartass that he is, he tells Ryuga that he thinks the message was meant to say,
L, do you know? Gods of death love apples.
He even manages to throw in an insult claiming Kira seems to be mocking Ryuga. However, Ryuga then says,
You activated my trap card!
Oh shit, wrong clip.
That's incorrect.
There we go. Before whipping out a 4th image that completes the fake message.
L, do you know? Gods of death who love apples have red hands.
This immediately pisses Light off, as he claims his deduction was perfect based on the information that was presented to him. And I want to point out that this is the first time he actually changes his tone. He's been chill and laid back, sipping on his tea and shit this whole time, but the moment he's told he's wrong about something, he gets a little heated, and I like that attention to detail regarding his character. Y'all remember what Ryuzaki said in episode 6, this man is a fucking child and he hates losing, and here he is letting that slip out, if only slightly. It's actually really interesting because he's really good at maintaining his composure when he's panicking, but when he thinks he has the upper hand, the dude starts fucking up, and this, while minor, was definitely a fuck up. Anyway, Ryuga calls him out on it.
Even though you knew the message was incomplete, you decided that there were only 3 notes. You never even considered that there might be a 4th. What do you make of that?
Ooh, fucking fire response. You felt so sure that the message should be read like this, even though there was really no reason to think that. Hell, if anything, there was evidence to the contrary given the numbers on the back of the images. Anyway, their conversation continues with Ryuga asking Light what he would do if he were pursuing someone he believed to be Kira. Light responds by saying that he'd attempt to get that individual to reveal information that was never made public, to which Ryuga praises his quick assessment.
You immediately thought of a scenario in which Kira is speaking directly to the investigator. I'm impressed.
And it's fucked up because that is in no way a compliment, at least not coming from Ryuga. He's essentially calling him out by claiming that you've already given a lot of thought to this, probably because you were anticipating someone coming after you because you're fucking Kira. It's fuck, man, this exchange is wild. Anyway, Ryuga tells Light that he's currently at a point where, whether Light is Kira or not, he would only benefit by working with him. But then Light goes on to say that while he does enjoy detective work, he has no desire to be killed by Kira for investigating him. And furthermore, Ryuga's lobbing accusations at him without even verifying his own identity. As Light puts it,
Besides, what proof have you been able to give me that you yourself aren't Kira?
which I gotta give it to him is a brilliant way to spin that, because since Ryuga hasn't been forthcoming with any proof of who he claims to be, it means that he could, theoretically, be Kira himself. Anyway, after Light finishes his little diatribe, Ryuga thinks to himself,
You sure talk a lot, don't you, Light?
which is just fucking hilarious because that boy sure does love a good monologue. And sometimes you really just want to tell him to
shut the fuck up. Nobody wants to hear it.
Anyway, Ryuga claims that he has no problem with allowing him to meet someone from the task force. However, he says that such a meeting would be contingent on him agreeing to work with them. Anyway, it's then that both gentlemen receive a phone call and, to everyone's surprise, Light ends up saying,
My father, he had a heart attack.
Alright everybody, welcome back to How to Read. The specific scope of the condition for death is not known to the gods of death either, so you must examine and find out. So this is an interesting one. I mean, if I'm understanding this correctly, it really just means that no one can really say what parameters will and won't work with the death note. And I'm not talking about simple deaths, like just writing a name down and waiting 40 seconds for a heart attack, but more so what was mentioned back in episode 4, when Light conducted his tests. He said it himself that it has to be physically possible, but I think what this is saying is that there really isn't a way for anyone to know 100% what is and isn't possible for someone. Anyway, the second one says, one page taken from the death note or even a fragment of the page contains the full effects of the note. And this is one that I'm going to try and remember to come back to because there's a particular moment that happens in episode 24 that has me wondering how exactly this rule works. But we'll get to it eventually. Anyway, the scene picks back up in the hospital where Light, the chief, and Ryuga, or let's just go with Ryuzaki now, are talking about what happened. It's revealed that the heart attack wasn't an attack from Kira, obviously, but one brought on from stress, which makes a lot of sense, all things considered. The chief then confirms that Ryuzaki is, in fact, L, and Light immediately trusts this because he knows that his father wouldn't lie about something like this. However, something worth noting is the fact that he says,
If I get rid of him and the rest of the investigative team, no, let's face it, it wouldn't be that simple. But for now, I'm the Light Yagami who's worried for his father.
And fuck me, this says a lot about the type of man or monster Light is. In what really seems like the same breath, he went from talking about getting rid of the investigative team, you know, the one that includes his father, to putting on a facade about being worried about him. It's like the fucking duplicity, man. It's insane. The man is a sociopath in every sense of the word. Anyway, I'm gonna play this quick clip for y'all.
Not long ago, Kira killed 12 FBI agents who'd come to Japan to assist us. One of these agents, Ray Penber, exhibited unusual behavior before he died.
I understand, and I was one of the people Ray Penber was investigating before he died. It only makes sense I'd be a suspect.
So, I want y'all to think about this little clip for a second. Can you spot the issue with what Light just said? Feel free to pause if you need to, because it's something I didn't catch until I watched it this time. And it's a pretty glaring issue. But alright, let's get into it. Remember this?
You're going to try and trap me by getting me to say something that only Kira would know.
Well, it looks like it fucking worked, because how the fuck did you know that Ray Penber was following you? How on earth could you possibly have that information, Light? Huh? You fucking lemon. That information was at no point ever told to you, not by Ryuzaki or your father. So how could you have known that? Huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. Case closed, bitch. Time to fry. Is what I wish I could say. Unfortunately, it looks like neither of them caught that, which how the fuck do you not catch that? It's like, what the fuck, man? This is literally what you were looking for, Ryuzaki. Come on. He literally just divulged information that only Kira could have. For fuck's sake. The only explanation I could have for why Ryuzaki didn't bring it up is because he wants to figure out how Light kills people. But, like, the fact that he didn't even acknowledge him saying it kind of ruins that theory for me. It's honestly super annoying, but whatever. So Light, staying true to his character, the fake one, I mean, goes on about how he wants nothing more than to help catch Kira and see to it that he's brought to justice and so on and so on. Just spewing a bunch of bullshit, you know? Anyway, it's convincing enough that the chief tells himself,
I refuse to believe that my son could turn out to be Kira.
And it's just like, you poor man. It's just so fucked up. The scene transitions outside and Light's got a different attitude about him now. Gone is the cool exterior he had before. Now he's adamant about clearing his name, going so far as to suggest that Ryuzaki should lock him up for a month in a place with no access to the outside world, which is interesting, I guess. I mean, if anything, it causes Ryuzaki to say,
Would any normal person be willing to go to such extreme measures to clear their name?
And that's a fair question because of a fucking month? That's a long ass time to just be sitting alone in a room with no access to the outside world, you know? Like, I've seen enough SVU to know that solitary confinement can really fuck a person up mentally. And he's just opting for that. However, Ryuzaki ultimately ends up rejecting the idea, claiming that it would be nonsense to take suggestions from a suspect. One more thing before we end this conversation, Ryuzaki comments on the fact that Light ought not to worry about the fact that he views him as a suspect, because if he's innocent, that'll become apparent. However, Ryuzaki adds,
"In listening to that conversation between you and your father, I was almost convinced you might not be him."
The reason I'm focusing on that is because immediately after Ryuzaki says this, Light makes sure to say,
"Oh, one more thing. I know I agreed to help with the investigation, but I don't think I'll be able to do much until my father is healthy again."
And it just really feels like Light was trying to adapt to the situation by showing Ryuzaki how much he cares for his father in the hopes that it will continue to alleviate his suspicion of him. And honestly, at least to me, it just feels so transparent that he really only said that to appease Ryuzaki. Because, I mean, we know Light doesn't really give a fuck about this man, at least not in the way sons typically do. We then transition to the final scene of this episode, as we're introduced to the director of Sakura TV, a man by the name of Demigawa, who, right off the bat, seems like a total piece of shit. If his rhetoric wasn't enough to convince you of that, then the fact that this man is smoking in an area that clearly says no smoking should say a lot. Anyway, he receives a package, apparently one from Kira.
"If you do not broadcast these tapes, I will kill your company's board of directors one by one."
While most would likely be terrified, he comes across as almost elated, and the episode ends with him saying,
"I'm so excited I feel like I'm having a heart attack here."
And roll credits. Anyway, that's the end of this episode. If you liked the video, then consider dropping a like, and if you really liked it, then consider subscribing. Anyway, that's it for this time. Until next week, friends. Peace.